Hurricane Lee is getting much bigger as it makes its north-northwestern progression here, and we're looking at dangerous impacts likely now for portions of the New England states. I've got the information on that, as well as intense heat set to build over portions of, yes, the Midwest with another heat dome. I've got all that info right here. Alright, I appreciate you being with me here. Here's your 5 p.m. Wednesday advisory on Hurricane Lee with 105 mile per hour winds with this storm, 952 millibar pressure, which is actually quite low in terms of pressure, which means higher strength. For a storm of Category 2 strength, this means that it is really a strong storm. It's just having trouble getting its wind field going. It's moving north-northwest at 10 miles per hour. Now, watches are now in place for New England states, so prepare for wind and water impacts all the way from portions of Rhode Island, curling around into portions of New Hampshire. And when I say wind and water, I mean wind and rain. But in terms of the water from the ocean, this is going to be hitting the entire East Coast as well as Bermuda with some very large and dangerous swells. And I'll talk about how large those could be a little bit later in the video now. Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine should be most prepared for significant impacts from this storm. Here we go towards Saturday morning. These tropical storm force winds are going to be pushing by portions of Long Island as well as towards Cape Cod. This will be hitting portions of Maine as well as portions of Nova Scotia the hardest. Here we go into the late day on Saturday and into your Sunday early morning for us as this pushes on off towards the north and east. Now, the chance of tropical storm force winds is pretty high, especially along the Maine coastline, with a chance of some hurricane winds, which is why we have that hurricane watch up there. Large waves and some storm surge, those are also very high threats for us here across portions of really Long Island, heading all the way on up towards the Maine coastline, as well as into Nova Scotia. But this is just the peak storm surge forecast from the National Hurricane Center. 2 to 4 feet of surge possible there on the edge of Cape Cod. Here we go, this front, not expected to make as much of a difference as initially seen about a week ago. You could see, I just want to zoom in, that's Hamilton, Bermuda for you there on your screen. And this is going to be skirting west of you, but we do have a tropical storm force warning for you there in Hamilton nonetheless, across the entire island of Bermuda. This storm is probably going to be about an 80 to 100 mile per hour storm as it passes just west of you, but you can see as it makes its way on off towards the north, it's going to interact with what's left of this front. Here we go a couple days out, and we've got this storm now moving past the mid-Atlantic, heading towards the Cape Cod region, and this is as we go into your September 15th. We're going to be seeing this system, really, the remnants of that front getting completely broken off by Lee into portions of the southeast, so that's why it'll be clearing out faster there. You can see how most of the energy from that front will now be on off towards the north and east, which is why Lee is going to be able to make that northwestward curve at the last minute, and unfortunately, this brings some of the heavier bands on the western side. So here you go in the middle of the night, Friday night, you've just got home from a long week at work, and now all of a sudden you're talking about just heavy rain, maybe some thunder even getting going in some of these bands in the nighttime, Friday night into your Saturday morning, and this will last most of Saturday as well into portions of especially New Hampshire and Maine. Just look at those yellow colors. This is really indicating just some moderate to heavy bands in a consistent manner, and look at how this is still going even as we go into your Sunday, and then finally this wraparound moisture is going to begin departing as you start the new work week, but unfortunately you're probably going to be pretty tired by then as this really gets caught up in that front and pushes on off towards the northeast. So I want to time out some of the wind gusts for you here. Let's start in the southern part of the region that's going to be affected with the winds and water. Here we go, 20 to 30 mile per hour wind gusts setting on for Long Island as well as portions of Cape Cod by the time we go to your Friday afternoon. These wind gusts are going to begin to pick up as we go Friday night, and I think the worst of these gusts is going to be on towards, say, portions of the Cape Cod Barnstable area. We'll see some 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts, very likely for us along that coastline for at least a few hours, but even over towards portions of New York City, eastern New York, as well as western Mass and portions of Connecticut, we're going to see some consistent 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts and some 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts pushing through Rhode Island. Notice how this begins pushing away, so you will have some relief for your Sunday in this area, as some 10 to 20 mile per hour wind gusts are all that remain at that point, although that will continue for a little while. Here we go, Saturday morning is when this begins picking up along the Maine coastline with some 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts there. You can see as we go into the afternoon hours on your Saturday, and I'm going to play this out for you right now. You could see how it's going to begin pushing on up into portions of central Maine. And look at how some of the 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts, that's really what you're seeing in the red color. And notice those yellow colors right offshore. All it takes is for a few of those gusts to make it onshore. And we're talking about some very significant 60, 70 plus mile per hour gusts. And right along that far northeastern Maine coastline is where we have the best chance of hurricane force gusts, which is why that hurricane warning has been issued as a precaution there. by the National Hurricane Center. Here you go. You can see Lee pushing right on up into the New England states. Again, this is as we go into your Saturday early morning. This is the timing of it with a model for us on Pivotal Weather. You can see, again, most of this is west side loaded with this storm, which is what the models have been trending on, and unfortunately is a not good scenario in this case with all of that moisture just pushing right on up into the New England states, because really if this were an east side loaded storm, all of that would be towards Nova Scotia, and of course we don't want this on anybody, but this is just really affecting the northeast United States. Not to say this isn't Nova Scotia anyway, but in this case with some very heavy rain bands pushing through there as well. Another thing that I wanted to touch on with Lee is the wave height that we're going to see out of this. You can see as the storm pushes by, this is as we go into your afternoon on Thursday, we're going to see some very big waves coming along the Carolinas, the southeast, into the mid-Atlantic, and even the northeast. We're already seeing some 5 to 10 foot waves. Remember, we're talking about waves that are larger than just, the small ones you see crashing on the surface. So now you're talking about 10, 20-foot waves crashing on the outer banks. This could cause some coastal erosion here, heading on up towards portions of Atlantic City, New Jersey. Long Island will get hit with some big waves as this goes by. And note how this is just continuing. Look, the northeastern side, that eastern coast of Florida is continuing to get battered. Northeastern North Carolina continuing to get battered by these waves, even as we head into the weekend. And look at how large these waves are pushing on up into the New England states. We're going to have some 20 to 30 foot waves just off the coast for us in Cape Cod. And look, some of these purple colors that you can see kind of get absorbed, make their way on up into portions of that region. I really want to watch that very closely, because you can see we might get some 30 to 40 foot waves to push on shore into Maine, as well as Nova Scotia. That would just be very devastating, and we need to watch that very closely, as those waves could push on shore. Locally, high totals to 8 inches will be possible out of this system, but I want to talk to you about the overall averages. Far eastern New York, Long Island, as well as into the Cape Cod region, half an inch to an inch, but especially if you get closer to the coast in that area, you're talking about 1 inch to 2 inches of rain. So this is stuff we can handle, but enough to cause some flooding. And then into portions of Maine, that's where we're going to be the most impacted by 2-inch totals. But the further northeast you go in Maine, that's where you're talking about 2 to 4 inches of rain being possible, which is why I can't stress this as enough. This is a significant situation, and you need to be ready for it. Alright, I want to run through the headlines of Lee real quick. Lee is weakening a bit while beginning to speed northward. Lee is gradually speeding up and is expected to bring large waves and tropical storm conditions to portions of Bermuda in the next couple of days. These large waves will also hit the southeast and mid-Atlantic coastlines, where 10 to 20-foot swells are very possible. These are big waves. You can get these with a tropical storm coming in on the east coast, and you're getting this with a hurricane several hundred miles offshore. Watches up for New England, with hurricane conditions possible in far northeastern northeastern Maine for us. The entire coastlines of Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire have tropical storm force watches in place. This goes halfway up the Maine coastline before being replaced by a hurricane watch, which starts just south of Bangor and goes all the way on up to that Canadian border. Dangerous conditions will set in as the weekend starts, and prepare for the following in the New England states: storm surge of a couple feet, very large waves 30 to 50 feet in height, and of course even in the areas not affected by 2 to 4 inches of rain and hurricane force wind gusts, very dangerous rip currents will set in. Look at this. Pleasant air is sinking south right now. I just want to talk about the pattern on land. We've had a cold front moving through, bringing some significant thunderstorms towards the east coast, as well as bringing some relief into the portions of Texas with some rain there. In fact, almost too much rain in some cases. We've seen temperatures now dropping 5 to 10 degrees below average into the Great Lakes, and even some of this cool air is sinking on down into the Four Corners, the South Central, where we're getting 10 to 15 degrees below average on some of the model projections as we go towards Friday afternoon. But just notice how we're at least a degree or two below average across most of the east as we start the weekend. And this is really comfortable in terms of the temperature department, with temperatures at night dropping on down into the 40s into portions of the Great Lakes out of some of this. We've even seen a few 30s getting going into Minnesota and Wisconsin. We're looking at some 50s sinking down all the way into the Ohio Valley. And look at that, even some 40s and 50s in the Northeast. And then look at how we're going to get some, even down into the 60s into some of these areas you might not expect it in the South and East. And this comes with much lower humidity. This is much needed air. Unfortunately, though, I do have one downside to the pattern, and this is what's about to build back into portions of the Midwest before moving east again. Another heat dome. Temperatures are going to get warm into the north central tier by Monday. This is September 18th. You're talking about temperature anomaly anywhere from 10 to 20 degrees above average, starting to build back over into portions of the Dakotas as well as portions of the central United States. Notice at this time we're still living in a dream if you live on the East Coast for us, with temperatures 5 to 10 degrees below average in some cases. And then I just want to talk about the last thing for us. This is from the Climate Prediction Center, but the graphics are through Pivotal Weather. You can see, look at how intense that heat dome in terms of anomaly compared to average is expected to be across the upper Midwest as we head 6 to 10 days out. This is as we go towards our September 19th through the 23rd, basically through next week. And we're talking about cooler air along the West Coast, and that really comes as systems are going to be interacting with that heat in the plains, and this means for a more active pattern across the south central region especially, where I wouldn't be shocked if we get a little uptick in some more severe weather and potential for some dangerous fall activity of those stronger storms there in the plains. So we'll keep a watch on that. Thank you so much for watching.